Hey guys, my name is Alicia, and if you don't know who I am, I like to make thrifting videos, but today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today I actually have 3 different thrift flips planned. They're a little bit more inspired for spring and summer that's coming up, and most of them are honestly going to be super easy. You don't even need to know how to sew for most of them, and it's just going to be really fun. So let's get into the first thrift flip. So the first thrift flip is actually super inspired by THRIFT. I love their clothing, like literally everything they make is so cool. So when I saw them create this really cool like beaded shirt a few months ago, I thought to myself like, that is so cool and honestly would be so easy to make. So that is what we're going to be making for our first thrift flip. But before we get into it, I did want to talk a little bit about today's partner, Ana Luisa. So if you're not familiar with who Ana Luisa is, they're basically a jewelry brand that creates high quality jewelry at affordable prices. One of my favorite things about the brand is that they're actually 100% carbon and water neutral, meaning that they really do care about their impact on the planet, which you guys know is so important to me. Like, literally everything I do on this channel is based around sustainability, so I love that. And all of their designs are honestly super unique, and just like literally every piece is so gorgeous. So I ended up getting a few different pieces from them. The first one is actually just this paisley ring right here. I love it because I just think it is so dainty and so beautiful. I'm obsessed. And then I also ended up getting this necklace. This is the Ana gold necklace. I love it just because it's so simple, so dainty, but it does have these cool little detail of these kind of like little circles on it that makes it just a little bit more unique, which is great for layering pieces, or like I did, I just added this little charm to it. I'm obsessed. I think it just looks so good. And then lastly, I did actually pick something up for my mom, and it is just this beautiful necklace with the letter S that is her first initial of her name, and I just thought this was so special and personal to her. I thought it would be the perfect Mother's Day gift because if you guys didn't know, Mother's Day is coming up. And what better way of celebrating mom by also taking care of our Mother Earth by gifting sustainable jewelry that has a low impact on our planet. And trust me, when you see this jewelry for yourself, you're definitely going to want to pick up something for yourself as well, which is perfect because Ana Luisa is actually offering a buy one, get one 40% off currently, which you can access with my link below in the description. So definitely check out the link, take a little peek at all of the beautiful pieces that they have to offer. Genuinely, they're all so nice, like you will not be disappointed. Okay, so for this particular thrift flip, I just kind of started off with this short sleeve ribbed turtleneck. You can pretty much do this on any type of clothing, but I would just recommend maybe choosing a bit more of a thicker material, just because I feel like it will last a little bit longer over time. So for the beads, I actually just picked up this huge tub of them from the dollar store. I think they were like $4, and that's going to give you plenty of beads to work with, so you can pretty much spell out any word that you want. Before we sew anything, you do want to just go ahead and measure and draw out a straight line to kind of give you a guide of where you want to place the beads. Otherwise, it's going to be really easy for them to start like going on an angle, so you want a nice clean line to help guide you. So you can spell out pretty much any word you want, you know, go with the original THRIFT design. But for me, I decided to spell out the word thrifter just because I thought it was really cute, very on brand for me. Once you've got your word spelled out, you want to go ahead and pick your thread. Yes, we are going to be doing a little bit of hand sewing for this, but like honestly, it is so easy. If you've never sewn before, you'll be able to pick it up super easily. For the thread, you basically want it to look invisible. So you basically want to choose a color as closest to your fabric as possible, just so that you don't really notice it. So once you've selected your thread, you can just take your needle and thread the thread through it. Once your thread is about halfway through the needle, you can then take the 2 ends and tie them together in a knot. Depending on your type of fabric that you're using, you may need to tie, you know, a few knots on top of each other just so that that knot does not pull through the fabric. Next, you want to take your needle and poke it from the inside going out, just so that our knot is hidden on the inside where you're not going to see it. Then you can go ahead, take your first bead and feed it through that needle. Once the bead is secured in place, you can then go ahead and stick your needle once again right beside the bead and pull it through to the other side. The trick here is that you really want to put it as close to the bead as possible without going underneath the bead. That way it's just gonna lie super flat and, you know, look correct. And then once your thread is pulled completely through, you can just finish off that letter with another knot on the inside. So I did start off by doing this method where I would secure each letter down in place, but I found it was kind of like pointless. So I eventually just fed all the letters through the same thread and then just tied a knot at the beginning and end. But you could totally do both for extra security. And it can definitely be tricky to line up the letters and keep them like perfectly straight, but I think if it's a little messy, it can add to the look. Then once that was done, I was kind of thinking that it was looking a little bit too boring, so I just went ahead and added these green stars on either end, and I thought that just really kind of like added something a little bit extra. And that is how you make the very first thrift flip. So this is how it turned out. I'm really happy with it. It pretty much looks exactly how I imagined it would be. I also just love how like small it is too. It's like very subtle and you can't really read it until you get up close. So I think that's really cute. I loved it so much that I did go ahead and make the Teddy Fresh version. Honestly, I nailed this one. It looks pretty much identical to the original. Definitely giving more Y2K vibes for sure. The one thing I will say for this is when you're washing it, just be sure to wash it inside out because I can see these beads getting caught on things in the wash pretty easily and you don't want that to happen because they might start to fall off. But yeah, overall, super happy with how both of those turned out. Okay, so for our next thrift flip, I wanted to experiment a little bit with like stamps. I thought it would be a really simple way to kind of make a shirt a little bit more unique. So for this one, I'm just starting with this plain green cropped sweater. As usual, you can pretty much start with any fabric. For this one, I'd probably recommend a fabric that's a little bit more flat and like not necessarily ribbed, just because I feel like it'll be a little bit more easy to work with. I actually just went ahead and picked up these stamps from the dollar store, and then I just kind of arranged them, experimented with different designs, and kind of like figured out which ones I like the best. And then instead of ink, we're actually going to go ahead and use fabric paint just to ensure that it is going to actually stick to the fabric. And I found that the best method for this was to actually just go ahead and paint whatever color you'd like onto a flat surface, making sure that it is just like really flat and smooth. And then you can just go ahead and take your stamp and stamp it right onto the paint, kind of like as if you were stamping with ink. Then you can just go ahead, take your stamp and stamp it right onto your fabric. You want to kind of like press it down pretty good and make sure the paint actually sticks. Then you can just lift it off to reveal your new graphic. So for my design, I ended up just sticking with black just because I felt like it was going to be the most simple, easiest to work with. And then for the stamps, I decided to go with the smiley face and then the flower on either side. I thought they just looked really cute together and I just kind of liked how they lined up the 3 in a row like that. So such a super easy way to upcycle a piece of clothing that you just want to add a little bit more to. And since that one was so easy, I did kind of want to go a little further, take it to the next step, and actually create my own stamp. So for my design, I kind of headed to Pinterest and Urban Outfitters and kind of collected a bunch of t-shirt designs that I thought could be really cool. I was definitely noticing a lot of similar trends and themes throughout all of them, and the smiley face was definitely one of those trends. And because, you know, this is like the first stamp that I'm making, I didn't want to go too complicated, so I thought, you know what, let's just stick with the smiley face. And this will actually give us the opportunity to make an even bigger graphic compared to the other small one that we just used. So you want to start off with this rubber block and carving kit. These are all from Amazon. And you want to start by drawing your design onto the actual rubber block. Just keep in mind that the design is going to be flipped once you print it on. So you kind of want to make sure you're drawing kind of the opposite. My smiley face was obviously symmetrical, so that didn't really matter. So once you've got your design drawn, you can go ahead and start carving it out. And you basically just want to leave out all the spots that you actually want your paint to show through. So this part's actually super satisfying. I remember back in high school, I used to do printmaking with this, and I forgot how fun it was. It's honestly like very relaxing. My method here was to use the bigger tool to kind of get all the main areas, and then once I got closer to the actual edges, I switched over to the smaller tool just to get those fine details. And then once your rubber block is all carved out, you can move on to the actual stamping. So for this project, I decided to start with just a plain pink hoodie. And for this one, I did want to experiment with the colors a little bit more. So I found this photo on Pinterest that I thought looked really good. It had this like yellow and black smiley face against this pink background, and I thought that would be perfect for my pink sweater, and like all the colors would complement each other very well. So I decided to start just painting a yellow circle on the back side of the block where it was just flat. And you definitely want to start with the color that's going to be on the bottom just so that everything ends up being layered properly. So once that was all painted out, I just went ahead and stamped it on. And then I decided to just go in and kind of add in a little bit more color where it didn't really pick up as well. Then once that layer is completely dry, you can move on to your next layer, which is my smiley face. I found the best method for this one was to just paint directly onto the stamp, especially because I didn't carve out the whole outside of the smiley face, so if I got any paint on that, that would have been a problem. Then once your stamp is completely covered, you can just go ahead and line it up as best as you can with your first layer and stamp it on. When I pulled it up, it was definitely a little bit messier looking than I was expecting. I definitely could have gone in and carved out a few more pieces because they definitely stuck out in places where I didn't want them to. And I did once again kind of go and touch up the areas where it was kind of missing paint. And I'm not gonna lie guys, for this one, I was a little bit disappointed. It didn't really turn out how I thought it was going to. I kind of wish I just stuck with a base layer of the smiley face and didn't add the yellow, because overall I feel like it just kind of looks like a messily hand painted kind of graphic. You can't really tell that I used the stamp. So I figured I have to redeem myself for this one, so I decided to do something a little bit different for the back. I feel like back graphics on hoodies have been super popular lately, so I thought that could look really cool. Once again, taking a little bit of inspiration from Pinterest, I thought this repeating pattern of smiley faces could look really cool on the back. So I just went ahead and continued stamping on the back, this time just with the black paint. And I'm super happy with how this one turned out. I think it looks so much cooler. Even though it's still pretty messy, I feel like when you see all of them side by side each other, you can really tell that they are all a uniform shape and aren't just hand painted. So here are my stamp DIYs. This is the first one. I think it just turned out so cute. It's honestly so simple, but like just adds a little extra something to it. And there's so many different combinations and different designs you could do with these little Dollarama stamps. Like you could really go crazy and start doing it like all over, but I really like this simple look. And then for the hoodie, like I said, the front isn't my favorite. It kind of has been growing on me though, but the back I just think is so cool. I love how the hood kind of covers some of them. I don't know, I think this really turned out really good. So once again, super happy with how those ones turned out. Now guys, for the final thrift flip, I did want to do something a little bit more crazy just because the other ones were definitely on the easier side. So when I saw that the Ragged Priest released this skirt, I knew that I wanted to make it. And I love the Ragged Priest. I feel like their designs are just so cool. This is actually not the first time I've recreated one of their pieces, so I knew this one was going to turn out really cool too. Now for this one, you're definitely going to need to know how to sew. You're definitely going to want to use a sewing machine for this one, but overall it is actually going to be pretty simple. So I decided to start with this plain black skirt. I've actually never ended up wearing this skirt because it was a little bit too small for me, so I thought this was like the perfect opportunity to revamp it and make it something that I can actually wear. So the first step you want to do is completely take the skirt apart. Now this definitely took a really long time, I'm not gonna lie, just because yeah, seam ripping is not easy, and let me tell you, they constructed this skirt pretty darn good because it was not easy to take apart. Would it have been easier to just start from scratch? In a way, yes. But even though a lot of the heavy lifting is going to be in the beginning, taking this piece apart, at least at the end we're going to have all of the necessary pieces to make assembling it a lot easier. So you want to make sure to remove the waistband and all of the belt loops, along with undoing the bottom hem and taking apart each panel. In this case, I ended up with 4. For this project, you are going to need 3 different colors of denim, so I just took this scrap pair of jeans that I had, along with a few extra scraps of a different color. So then once all of your pieces have been taken apart, we can actually start drawing the lines of where we want the different pieces. So I basically just pulled up a reference photo of the actual skirt and basically copied it as best as I could. It was definitely a little bit tricky on the sides just because at the time there wasn't like a good photo of either side of the skirt, so for some parts I kind of had to figure it out myself. Once you have all your different sections drawn, you just want to go ahead and with your chalk just kind of mark out what colors are going to be in each section, just because this is really important to map out exactly how you want it to look. I basically went with exactly what the Ragged Priest had done, except for me the colors were just a little bit different in different spots. And then I just did the same thing with the back side. I also made sure to line up the sides as well. Like I said, it was kind of hard to see from the photos, but you just want to line those up as best as possible. The coolest part about this skirt is the fact that like in certain areas, it does really look like it's seamless. Then once you've got it all planned out, you can start cutting the pieces out. And then since the black pieces for me, for my skirt, were the only ones that I was actually going to be keeping, I just make sure to add extra seam allowance on those ones. Otherwise, the skirt is going to drastically start shrinking when you start sewing all the pieces together. And then once the pieces are all cut out, you can go ahead and slowly start replacing each piece with a different color one by one, kind of using that black piece as a template, but being sure to definitely add extra seam allowance. Definitely do this one at a time because the pieces are going to start to get really confusing and all look the same if you take it apart. I also went ahead and pinned all the pieces together as I went just to keep everything in place. Then once the pieces are all put together, you can go ahead and start sewing together one panel of the skirt at a time. You definitely want to sew all the vertical pieces first. That way it's just going to be so much easier to put all the other pieces together. And then once all those little sections are done, you can go ahead and put them all together and sew those pieces in place. And then once you've completed all 4 panels, you can basically just sew all the skirt together. So now that all the pieces are complete and put together, it's definitely starting to look more like a skirt. We basically just need to add the final touches at this point, like the hem, for example, which I just went ahead and did, super easy. And I also added the zipper back in. If you guys want a detailed tutorial on how to add a zipper, I actually have a video where I have a whole tutorial on that, so definitely check that out if you need to. Then next up, we want to just add the waistband. So I'm taking my waistband from that second pair of jeans, and then I'm taking the top part of my skirt and basically sandwiching it inside of that waistband, pinning it in place as I go. And then once it's pinned, you can basically just take that and sew it all on top of the skirt. Next up, we're gonna add the pockets back to the back. I just took one from my original skirt and then my second pair of jeans. It looks really, really cool like that. And I went ahead and pinned them in place, and then you can go ahead and just sew those into place. And then the very last thing that we need to do is add on the belt loops. Super easy, just go ahead and pin them exactly into place where they need to go. You want to make sure that these ones are a different color from your waistband, so I just took them from the original black skirt. And then when you're sewing these on, you definitely want to go back and forth a couple times just to make sure they're extra secured, so that if you are going to wear a belt with this skirt, they're not going to fall off. And then you are pretty much done. So this is how the skirt turned out. I am so happy with it. It's definitely my favorite piece I made in this video. I think it just looks so freaking cool. And honestly, it's pretty identical to the original design, besides the fact that I did use a little bit different colors. The back also just looks really cool. This project definitely did take quite a bit of time, but overall it was pretty simple, I'd say. And then for the sides, as you can see, I didn't do the best job lining them up, but this one looks pretty good. And then this one just really doesn't line up at all, which is fine. I feel like it still looks really cool. But yeah, overall super happy with how this turned out, and honestly can't wait to wear this. I feel like this is just like the coolest skirt ever. So guys, that is basically all of the thrift flips that I have for today. Let me know what you thought of them, and if you do end up trying any of these, definitely tag me on Instagram or send me a DM. It's at Alicia Thrifts, will be in the description. And of course, don't forget to check out my link for Ana Luisa in the description below. Like, even if you aren't planning on buying anything, like, I'd encourage you to just check out the link and admire how beautiful the jewelry is. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week.